The Pet Psychic, and I'm with my best friend, Kim Klein. She's an intuitive counselor. And we're here doing our weekly lives Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And today we thought we would talk about whether or not you need to meditate to be psychic. And we thought this is like a good question to answer because a lot of my clients ask me this question. Kim, do you want to say anything before we kind of get into it, or?
No, it's a very common question. My clients and then friends, everyone says, well, do I need to meditate or can't I just blah, blah? So it's a great subject. I think everyone will be interested in this.
And feel free to ask questions in the chat room. We'll be watching the chat on YouTube and Facebook. So feel free to kind of jump on in. We'll be manning those too. So a lot of people ask me this question about whether or not we need to meditate in order to be psychic. And I have mixed feelings about this on what meditation is. So a lot of people believe that this meditation is this Buddhist, which I mean, I love this type of meditation too, but I don't feel like we have to do this, where you just have to sit in a quiet space and just literally watch your thoughts go by and get your thoughts to be empty. And I think that's very unrealistic in this world today, to be able to sit in that quiet space. Many people can, many meditators can, but the average person, I don't think that's necessarily necessary. But I do believe that it's important that if you want to become a pet psychic or a medium or a tarot reader or whatever your modality would be, just wanting to listen to your animals more or listens to your spirit guides or your ancestors on the other side or your loved ones on the other side, I think it's important to have some type of meditation practice and to bring that into your everyday life. If I didn't meditate, I meditate every day. If I didn't meditate every day, I get anxiety. So I definitely notice like the days where I don't do it. But I listen to music, like I'll listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation, which has a lot of music and has a very guided, or the Monroe Institute. There's a lot of different meditation apps that are guided meditations. I think those are easier for people because it gives them something to concentrate on. The main part of meditation is to just start to get to know yourself, get to just explore your thoughts, like what are you thinking, and explore the feelings that you're having in your body, and then explore how energy moves throughout your body. And I really feel that if you take that time to become more aware of yourself, just what are you thinking? What are you feeling? How do you think? Do you have, do words go in your mind, or do you think in visuals or pictures? How do you feel in the energy in your body? Do you feel it stuck somewhere? Do you feel it release out of you? Can you feel it come back into you? Can you explore through your body and then out towards the universe and then feel that energy come back? And those things are all very, very important to me so that I'll know if something else is trying to talk to me. So if I hear a pet trying to say something to me, or a deceased loved one trying to say something to me, or a spirit guide, or just nature, I'll be able to recognize it because I'm used to exploring those spaces. And whether I do them, I think it's important to have a time of day where you sit down and you're in a quiet place and you do them, but you can also do it online in the grocery store or at the stoplight, or if you're waiting for a phone call, or just take any time out of the day just to explore.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of people that need more even basic meditation training than that, because they haven't felt their body, or they're not even aware of what some sort of sign and feeling in their body feels like. Even if they're feeling it, they might not feel it because they have so many emotions and thoughts and just things throughout the day going on. So I think even before looking for feeling the feelings in their body, they need to learn what their body first feels like just doing a normal thing, like what their normal feeling is as their person. And then once they start meditating and they meditate on a regular basis, then they'll be able to feel something different. So that wasn't me. That's a different feeling coming here. But for me, it took a long time to understand what my body was feeling like versus what's that feeling that just happened. Did I just feel like this flutter, or did I feel like I was lifting out, or did I feel like tingles somewhere in a weird spot? And learning about that and realizing, hey, that's something that's coming to me that's not me. And so that process took a while. And I think for some people it will take a while. Just like my husband, when I say, okay, go inside, blah, 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 do you feel your body doing anything different? He's like, no, but it's because he hasn't crossed into practicing enough to feel.
No, and he's like a martial arts guy. So you would think that he would, of all people, would feel his body.
He feels his body, but he doesn't feel anything different. He's still in the, I feel my body as my body, but I don't feel any external feelings coming to my body. And I don't feel my body giving me signs coming up from the inside of it that something is telling me something. He's still sort of locked off.
Yeah, well, maybe he doesn't feel his body is because from doing all that martial arts, that he has a very strong boundary. And so because any type of that martial arts is going to bring up that energy throughout your body and create that natural boundary around his body. So he might not be able to feel anything because his boundary is so strong. So
that's true.
Yeah, so he has to think, he has to like make a conscious like intention. Okay, I'm going to release my boundary and allow something to come in.
That's fascinating. Okay, I got to think about that and talk to him about that. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to think about that one.
It's cool. I mean, because he's a sensitive guy. It's not like he's not going to feel anything, you know?
No, and his energy and his body, he generates it and pushes it out.
Exactly.
So that whole like barrier, this critical edge and then further threshold, you're right. It's probably just locked up. It's like I'm pushing energy out where I want it to go and how I want it to go.
Yeah. I don't even know if I would call it locked up because like I try and get there. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of meditators that try and create such a boundary that we are safe from outside forces, right? Or we are protected in a way. So, but I definitely like agree with you. And it's kind of like what I was trying to say in the beginning too. You got to know your own body first. You got to know what you're thinking and feeling before you can know what anyone else's thinks. And we are such in a day and age of like Instagram, everything's so fast, Facebook, like got to answer an email, get a text message, timers are going off, like to-do lists. Like we are not in an era where we just like relax and allow ourselves to pay attention to what is our own being.
Yeah.
It's so important.
That's totally true. And all of those waves of energy that are coming in all different frequencies, they're bombarding us. It's like we have to shut those things off. Shut that TV, shut that radio, shut that computer. Those waves will disappear and we're left with us, our waves of energy. Yeah.
And all those people who are diagnosed with like chronic fatigue and, you know, all those other autoimmune diseases and things that make them so exhausted. I mean, I believe that they have that diagnosis, but I also wonder, like, are you just so empathetic and do you just not have that space within you that then does what your husband is doing, you know, which creates a boundary? Because if you can know yourself and know your thoughts and feelings, then you are so full up that you can't be affected by other people's stuff and the world or the sadness that's around you. One of the greatest things that meditation has done for me is create that energetic boundary around me, so that if I'm in a session, or if I see like all this animal abuse, or if I see stuff that's so sad for me, it's almost like I have a bumper. It doesn't come and like wreak havoc on my heart anymore, because I have this stronger energetic bumper from meditating that then protects me from that overwhelming pain that we get from being empathetic.
You know, what's interesting is Amani just mentioned something. Yoga, Tai Chi, and crochet helps her meditate. And here's the thing that's true. When you're doing something with your body, with your hands, with your whatever you're doing, or you're concentrating on not concentrating, you're putting yourself into a meditation. So you can have a walking meditation. If you're walking and just breathing, it will put you there. If you're driving, like I drive, and that's sort of like my daily meditation naturally, is a driving meditation. All of those things, you're doing something basically unconsciously, so that your mind is relaxing and opening it up and going to where it needs to go for the meditation.
100%. So that yoga and Tai Chi and crochet for her is the meditation.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's so important that we have something like that for ourselves.
So my spiritual teacher, he calls those things a hair. Like, it's something, say you just pick up a little thing and you're twirling it in your hand, and all you're doing is that. You're thinking of nothing else. It's like pulling a little hair. That separates you. It gets you into your unconscious mind, so that you fall into a different frequency, and then you're in a meditation. And so all of those things, if you do those, you can kind of call them your hairs, what you need in order to trigger yourself into a meditation. And at some point, you'll recognize that feeling in your body where you don't have to use the crochet or the yoga or the driving or whatever you're doing. You don't have to go to that to be the trigger to enter, the unconscious, so your subconscious can start doing its thing. So you won't need a hair at some point.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you can self-regulate yourself into meditation. It's like how I talk about thinking about our energy states, or our being as being on a frequency. And if you could picture a radio dial, and the higher on the radio dial, the higher frequency we are. So the higher we're into meditation, or into a walking meditation or a living meditation, the lower frequency we are, the lower we are and out of that state, and in more into a chaotic state. And the lower frequencies are like stress and unworthiness and fear and anxiety and depression. And the higher frequencies are that meditative space of love and joy and gratitude and feeling oneness with nature. And if we can self-regulate ourselves and turn that dial, the more we can learn that, the more we're going to be in a meditative state. The more you are like, whenever I'm working, I'm putting myself into a meditative state. I'm raising my frequency so that I can tune in to a higher consciousness, whether it be an animal or a deceased person or a spirit guide or whatever it may be. And so that's what we kind of need to do. Any psychic needs to do. I actually was listening to another psychic. I don't know if it was like on YouTube. And she actually said, like, I don't meditate. And she said, I don't meditate. And like, I don't believe in meditation. I just go. And for some reason, it just shut me off to her. Because I was like, if you don't have any form of like meditation of centering yourself, like, I just didn't trust her from that moment on. It was like a weird feeling. I mean, maybe she's trustworthy, but like intuitively, I just shut off.
She might have done unconscious triggering and meditation. Like, she might actually enter into a meditative state and not know it just by walking around the block. I mean, who knows what she
I don't know, though. Then why aren't you stating that? Like, if you're
maybe she doesn't know.
If you're teaching the people, your followers,
what
she's doing,
that
you
she
know what
does
I mean?
nothing.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's saying you do nothing. I'm like,
Hmm.
that's kind of worrisome to me.
That is odd.
I don't know.
Um,
But you're right. Like maybe she does. Maybe she has. Maybe
well, who knows? But the fact that she says she doesn't is something to
it
question.
worries me because I
Yeah.
think we all need that. And like, if you want to be an intuitive being, you have to know how to calm yourself to that frequency or to that hair or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
somebody was talking about guided meditation, and then she's transitioning to self meditation. That's good. That's a way to get into it. Like, but I look at different meditations as having different purposes for me. So, like guided meditations, um, I love them. I love when someone else is guiding me somewhere because it turns off my mind. And instead of me having to turn my own mind off, because when you try to turn your mind off, sometimes you can't do it. I mean, you have thoughts
Yeah.
coming in, but when you're getting a guided meditation, like my mind is on the guide and going somewhere, and all of a sudden my mind's off, and I become part of that guided meditation, and it
Yeah.
boom. So I think guided meditations are really good, whether they're where you start or whether you do them frequently when you feel like it. I think they're really good to add into your meditation repertoire for sure.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And sometimes like listen to the same guided meditation because then your body then becomes like it knows, your unconscious knows what's going to be next.
Hmm.
I love Dr. Joe Dispenza's his chakra that he calls them energy centers, his meditations, because then your body just kind of knows what's next and you can kind of feel it starting to move there already. You kind of train yourself to a
Yeah,
routine. Yeah, which I
exactly.
love. Yeah,
That becomes just entering into that particular meditation is the trigger itself that gets you into your
mm,
meditation.
true.
Yeah.
And Barry Goldstein is a musician. He actually did the music for my meditation CD. If any of you guys are interested for that, that's a guided meditation CD to connect with your animal in the afterlife, and how to help them pass away and how to
Mm.
connect in with them after they've passed. But Barry also has he does a lot of Dr. Joe's meditations as well. He does a lot of like spiritual teachers meditations, but he also just has music that you can use on its own, which is so beautiful too. He's a great person to follow. Um, I'll put his stuff on in the comment section below the video when it's posted on YouTube. But that's something that you could do too, is just use music to get you into that zone, to get you into that state.
Mhm. I'm reading some comments.
Okay. Okay, I might answer this little this talking to animals
Mhm.
one, if that's okay.
Mhm.
So, this question from Dominique, can you talk a little bit about establishing the initial connection with the animal? How to start the communication? Do you like create a bubble around you and the animal and say hello? Just reach out with feeling and say hello, or call them by their name to lock in? It really depends on what the situation is, right? So if it's your own pet, like the first thing you want to do, well, if it's any pet, really, the first thing you want to do is center yourself, concentrate on your breathing, connect in with your heart, be really clear of your intention. Like, what do you want to say to your animal? What do you want to get out of the communication between the two? I like to always just call in our higher selves or any higher power that can help aid in that communication. I don't always do that when I'm like quickly saying something to an animal. I don't always consciously do that. But if it's going to be a session, I always do. But you want to be very clear first on what you want to say. And then, and connect in with your heart. And then from there, yes, you can, if it's your own animal, call your animal's name, get their attention, tell them, just tell them like you're talking to a child, like, I want to talk with you right now, and just begin talking. That really is the easy part. Like, they understand you. The main thing is you just want to stay in the positive and create in your mind and in your body and in with your words what you want them to do rather than what you don't want them to do. So let's say you're talking to them about coming to you. You want to say, I want you to come when you are called, and actually picture them calling. So you want to stay away from saying, don't run away from me, because all they see is them running away from you and the chaos of them running away from you. So you can say, I'm upset when you run away from me, and you feel the upset and see them running away from you. And I'm really happy when you come back to me. Like, come when you're called, So that really is the easy part. You just have to get centered within yourself, be clear on what you say, and just say it, and they'll get it. Animals are amazing that way.
And that it goes to just spirituality in general. You don't say the negative, say the positive. Mm-hmm. So you're telling the dog, come to me, not don't stay away. And whatever you want, you say the positive and not the negative. Like, I don't want all these problems. You don't say that. You say, I'm happy with no problems. So it works with everything.
Yeah. So true. So true. It's a way to train yourself just into a way of life, like you were saying, like if you have problems, you want to say, like, I don't want all these problems. You want to say how happy you are with life and feel that.
Exactly.
And see how that manifests in your life. And if you catch yourself doing the negative, just get yourself back on track, make a note. Oh, I caught myself there, and get back on track, and don't dwell too much that you were in the negative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Edna kind of talks about COVID and how COVID was a silver lining for her, because it gave her a time of solitude to dive into meditation. And that was a gift. I've heard that a lot. Like, people have become more artistic. They got to do more of their projects that they wanted to do. Yeah. It's really people turning a negative situation into a positive one, raising their frequency and being creative. If you stay in that, like, if Edna, I don't know, Edna, if this was you, but I would imagine if Edna was in the fear of COVID and the fear of what's going to happen and the fear of can she provide for herself, it would be hard for herself to dive into that meditation. Or she could have used meditation as a way to raise her frequency and release that fear. Because when we're in meditation, we're raising that frequency, and fear can't live in that higher frequency. So good for you, Edna.
Totally. So for some people who don't know other types of meditation besides guided meditation, I'm going to tell them about a few. I mean, there's two of them. People probably know about transcendental meditation. And to me, that's the simplest meditation. And it's not, in the beginning, it's not really even, they don't advertise it as a spiritual meditation. It is a meditation that helps you get rid of anxieties and emotions and things in your mind that are just clogging up everything, so that once it's gone, then you can start feeling the messages and the spiritual connections. And with TM, your mind is not, it's doing nothing except you're saying something inside a word that is not a word. So your brain has nothing to connect to. And so it'll start chipping away at the solid mass of crap in your brain. When people say garbage,
yeah. So wait, first tell people like what TM, like what you're actually saying, like a word over and over again. It's like a mantra.
It's not really a word. So your teacher gives you a word, and it's based on what year you're learning. It's based on all this stuff, but it's a sound. Like, some people think, oh, it's Om, but it's that, or it's some other sound, and you're just saying it in your head, and it has zero meaning. And because it has zero meaning, you can't start visualizing what it is. Like, it's not chair, because then you're seeing chairs. It's something that you have nothing to lock onto. And so then
that could be a meditation, though, chair, if you wanted it to.
If you wanted it, but there'd be a different kind of meditation. So because you want to clear your mind of the stuff that you're constantly thinking and worrying about. And so to me, that's a good start. Transcendental meditation is a really good start if you have just so many thoughts in your head and so much stuff, and to start chipping away. because once it's taught, it's digestion of the emotions is what it is. And so you start
Interesting.
tipping it away, and then your mind is clear. It has more space. It could feel free. And then you can start feeling and thinking different things and feeling different thoughts coming in. So you do that twice a day, 20 minutes each. But, if you do it once a day, that's at least you're doing it. If you do it once every 2 days, you're still doing it. It's best to do it on a regular basis. But if you at least start, you'll start feeling some difference. And so once you start feeling that difference, then you can add into your meditative practice visualization, because your subconscious has some space to be able to move through, and as many thoughts are not going to come in and interrupt you as would if you hadn't started getting rid of those thoughts. So I think you can add different meditations to your practice for different purposes. And then the self-guided meditations, my main meditation, which I learned from my spirit teacher, Tom Brown Jr., it's called a long form. And a lot of people do this. It's when you start with your body and you do segmented muscle releasing, and then you're really heavy, and then you visualize and you feel yourself flying. And then you walk down this path and it gets kind of more detailed. That kind of thing.
That becomes a visualization of like going to like a meditative space in your mind, like a power.
You have a place you're going in your mind. You're leading yourself on a path to get to where you're going.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, the more you start seeing things in your mind and feeling them and living them while you're going down your path. So that's a self-guided meditation.
Yeah. So I like to start with just paying attention to nature, like see if you can synchronize your body or your energy with nature, like whether it's the wind blowing or the sun or a bird chirping or whatever you're seeing in nature, to see if you can feel like how nature feels, if you can become a part of nature. I think that's a beautiful meditation to start with too.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's Yeah,
another thing to kind of just point out is that everyone has different ways of feeling. Like some people are very visual, and it's very easy for them to have a guided meditation, that these pictures will just form in your head when you're talking about walking down your spiritual path, right? But I also know very unbelievably talented psychics and meditators that during guided meditations will just be able to feel the space. They won't be able to visualize it. There's no visualization at all. There's just the feeling of what it would feel like to walk down the path, or the feeling of the space, So to be really non-judgmental of yourself, if you can't actually visualize or actually feel, like just do whatever you can do and just follow that. And from there, other things will happen. Some people will just feel tingling in your body, or they'll shake in their bodies. So just stay there. Like you don't have to actually do exactly what the guided meditation is telling you to do, or the type of meditation is telling you to do. Explore your own self and see what's right for you.
You're totally right. It's about the feelings. When I started, and still to this day, my feelings rule. So I don't always visualize in some clear manner, but I feel, and when I'm feeling, then I add in some imagination, like I'm feeling and I'm saying, okay, I'm feeling these trees and I'm feeling the mist and I'm smelling this. And then at some point I'll end up maybe getting a flash of what I'm feeling. So yeah, feelings I think are the most important over actually visualizing, because if what you're seeing, it could just be making it up. Like when I said, sometimes I just imagine it, but the feelings are true. So yeah, whatever works for you, whatever comes to you.
Also to have a really clear intention about what do you want out of meditation, right? Yeah. So we kind of brought this up as like, do you need to meditate in order to be a psychic and hear your animals and hear from spirit, right? But if you want to have an out of body experience, that's another way you could use meditation, or to use meditation to consciously dream more, or to use meditation to heal your body. That could be one, right? So there are many ways, or to heal someone else. You could use meditation as a jumping post. So I feel like meditation should be your starting point for everything that you do.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
right? Like, so if you're an athlete, meditate first,
Yeah.
and then go into the zone of running or whatever your modality is. But to me, meditation should just be a way of life that then, which you're right, maybe that psychic, she does actually do it and she's not aware of it, right? Like she actually does have a practice that she's not that she's doing.
Yeah.
Maybe she walks in the morning. Who knows?
But the fact that she's not aware of it and she's a psychic for business, I see where it's like a little disjointed.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but it's okay.
So you've mentioned something about an athlete. Totally true. And there's been scientific versus spiritual, which I think it's the same, but studies about athletes that have envisioned, and only for like a couple of weeks, only envisioned them doing perfect baskets and whatever, all their training. And then after that time period, they've gone on to whatever, the court or whatever, and they perform better than they ever have, versus somebody else who hasn't envisioned and they just practiced.
100%. And those studies have gone back to like the beginning of time. I mean, that is like the ancient yogis. I mean, it's all the creative visualization. That is just, it's ancient knowledge that you want to, that's how you manifest your future. You know, you just create your reality in your mind.
Yeah.
Joe Dispenza says, like, I don't know if this is his quote, but it's like, step into your future self by creating it in your mind first. So 100%. Yeah. It's so important to do that. And that's why the opposite of living creative meditation or living a meditative life is living in your old trauma, where you're like playing your trauma over and over and over again, where you're 10 years past a divorce and you're still blaming your ex for things in your life. That is all on you, because we are in charge of our energy in our body. We are in charge of our thoughts and feelings, and it is our responsibility to learn how to self-regulate. So if you're still, I mean, post-traumatic stress is real. Don't get me wrong. Like, I understand that post-traumatic stress is real, but I do know that we can get stuck. So this is like a personal story that I kind of don't mind sharing. And I've meditated since I was very young. But in 2018, I had a conflict with somebody, and I was playing this story about this person over and over in my head and how that person had wronged me. And I was conscious enough to know that it was like a recorder was playing over in my head. Like, it wasn't even like I had forgiven the person, like emotionally, like I felt like I had forgiven the person. But like, I was thinking in my head, like, what I could have said and what would have been different if I had said this. And it was like literally like a broken record. And so I was like, I gotta get this out of my head, right? Because it's interfering sometimes, like in my daily life. Like, it was like almost like a default would go back to that. And I think that's important for people to start recognizing what they're thinking and feeling. Like, do they have a default thought in their head that they keep playing over and over again, like a broken record? And what is the energy? What is the feeling in your body connected to that thought? And whatever that is then creating your reality down in your future. So it's important to really like get a grip on that and pull the reins on that. Well, I went to a Dr. Joe retreat with the intention of like letting go. And I've been a meditator. Like I knew how to meditate to like let this go. Literally, the first 30-minute meditation, I raised my vibration up enough, my energy up enough where it literally disappeared in that 30-minute meditation and that voice had never come back. So I think it's important for us to like really think about the stories that we tell ourselves. And is that our meditation and is that healthy for us? Does that
You
make
know,
sense?
it makes so much sense, and that you're absolutely right. And I have a little example. So, 14 years ago, if I was to tell people about, Talia, my daughter's accident, and da da da, I would have emotion. But I've worked through it and
Wait,
progressed
Kim,
it. Yeah.
I think it's important that every time you bring up Talia in this context, that there's going to be a lot of people that don't
Okay.
know the story. So just maybe just say that.
Okay.
Just
So, well, this is a good example because I'm just going to say it.
yeah.
In 2007, my daughter, who had just turned 13, died with her dad in a small private plane crash in Panama, and it's horrible, horrible. But the way an example is the way I just said that. I said that just factually. There was no emotion when I just said this, and so somewhere after a couple years went by,
That's Talia up there.
there's Talia. People would say, "So tell me about it," and I would just factually say what happened. Oh, and this year she was this old, and she's with her dad, and this happened, and they crashed, and then they died. And people would say, "Well, what is wrong with you? There's no emotion to what you're telling me." And I said, "Don't think don't have emotion, but I have worked through that part, and now if I'm telling you what happened, I don't want putting myself back into the trauma is just going to keep me in trauma." And so when I tell people what happened, and if I just tell it factually, I'm not attaching any emotion to it. And so it's not going out there and grabbing negative emotions and bringing it back. It's not holding me back with sad, horrible emotions and keeping me stuck. I mean, so many people are stuck that they can't live their lives. They can't move on and become spiritual. Like there's a lot of things you can't do if you're stuck, and you have all these deep-seated feelings that you need to process. And so I process them. And granted, there's no way that I'm not sad about this. I'm always sad about this, but I don't attach it with the feeling. And so I'm not going to be pulling bad, sad, emotional feelings and keeping them in me anymore. So that's why when I say it, it's just a factual thing.
What you just said is one of the wisest, most conscious things that anyone can say. Wow. Because it's one thing for me to say something like that, right? To say, like, when you're telling a story of your trauma, detach yourself from the emotions, because if you don't detach yourself from the emotions, you'll be reliving the trauma over and over again. And that's going to hold you back from being a happy, spiritual person. But here Kim is, who lost her daughter, and she is sitting here today telling you that she has overcome herself and has done so much work on overcoming her emotions and self-regulating herself back to a place of joy and gratitude and love of life, that she can tell the story of her trauma, of her daughter leaving. And because I think this is important, it's important to share the story, but every time you share the story, if you're feeling it, you're going to be hurting yourself over and over and over again in such a deep level. So I really want to commend you in that. I think that is absolutely beautiful. And I think that if there's one thing that people learn today, is to be able to do what you just said.
Well, thank you. Now, hearing you say
now
this,
I'm gonna cry.
Will make me cry. Exactly. But it's a different kind of cry.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's
Thank
really
you.
beautiful.
I'm going to add one little thing to this. A few years after, and I was at a healing class where I was learning different healings, and the healing teacher said, okay, tell us what happened. And I just blah, 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 blah. And then this healing teacher was horrible. We left the class early because the healing teacher then said, I think you're blocking your emotions. You're not healing. You're this, this, this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was more evolved in that healing realm than he was. And he's supposed to be the teacher. So I didn't even let him like mess with my head. I'm like, okay, we're done here. So you got to watch what other people expect from you too.
Yeah, which is really interesting, right? So it's interesting because he probably didn't
feel that.
He wanted you to feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he should have listened to you when you said, I felt it. This is where I'm at. That's where he went wrong. I don't think he went wrong by saying, hey, do you need to feel? Do you need to feel it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he went wrong by not listening to you when you said that you did.
Exactly.
Because I think that's really important too, is that when you start to have a meditative practice and you start to recognize what you're thinking and feeling, then when someone gives you constructive criticism, whether it's that time or another time, you can say, is that me? Do I need that?
Mm-hmm,
Or do I not need that? And then not have an emotional attachment to it. It'd be like, okay, no, I feel like I worked through this. This is your stuff, not mine. Or oh yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to go deeper into this and feel more. Yeah, that's where he wasn't spiritually evolved, that he couldn't hear you and understand your growth you've already done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel like I've actually accomplished something.
What do you mean?
Now it reinforces the fact that I know that I've accomplished something. And now it's like, oh, you know that I've accomplished something. And I have total faith in you. So yes, I've accomplished something.
Aw, Kim. Aw. So feedback is important. I think that's like having a community where you can talk to people and you can and share your story and hear feedback, and people tell you like, oh, I've seen that you've grown, or that's important to have, because otherwise you don't know it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, you don't know it.
Thanks, Edna.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Kim has some powerful wisdom on healing trauma. That is for sure. With this Mala, where she says, I always thought, or he, and I'm not sure, I always thought of it as blocking too. You mean I'm just dealing with it? I'm not sure if you were talking about what we were just talking about. You really have to think about that within yourself, right? Like each individual person, it might be different. You might not. And also to know, like, who do you feel it with? Like, maybe there is deeper levels that Kim can feel it through and to deal with it, and like in that trauma. But where's that safe space to do that? Is it when you're just telling someone, at a class, or just telling someone or is it when you're in it doing a ceremony, or it depends on where you are. There's always deeper levels of healing. But that trauma where you're just like crying about trauma, like that's when you really have to pay attention to yourself.
Yeah. And what Mala said, you have to be aware of yourself, whether you're blocking or if you have worked through it. And only if you've worked through it, because did I have I meditated? Have I talked to enough people? Have I gone to healing classes? Have I gone to healers? Have I, whatever you need to do, have you done it, so that and you feel deep in your heart that you've processed? Because some people are blocking it. If you just don't process, if you don't talk about it, if you don't work through the feelings, if you don't let yourself cry and have the emotions and whatever, that is blocking. You have to let the feelings out for them to process. And like, I know for a
100%.
fact I've left them out, seriously.
Yeah.
And so some people, you have to be aware that you need to work through them in order to process, or you possibly are blocking.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just blow it off.
Right. And to pay attention to, like, when you're telling the story, what is your intention when you're telling the story of trauma? Is your intention to relive the trauma? Is your intention to get sympathy? Like, what's your, a long time ago, I was many, like forever, years and years ago, I was married, and I was married to an addict. And when we were getting divorced, I went to Al-Anon. Well, Al-Anon is a, like a 12-step program. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's for people who have alcoholics and people who use in their life. So it's not for the users, it's for the people who have the users in their life. And there's so much wisdom in those rooms, in both those rooms, AA and Al-Anon. And they don't let you complain. They don't let you sit there and like tell your sob story of your addict loved one. They like are like, okay, what about you? Like, where's your growth in this? Like, where can you do better? And I really learned that in those rooms. Like, you don't stay in your trauma. You get out of it. You don't place the blame on someone else. So if you're sitting there listening to yourself like complain about someone or complain about a situation, really turn it back onto yourself and think, where do I need to do the work? And think about what's your intention doing that.
Yeah. And you can think about, what am I complaining about and who is it? Because sometimes you don't even need to have them in your life. So why complain about them? Go. You don't need this person.
Totally.
Yeah, there's no rule that everyone in your life needs to stay in your life.
Why does that time more important than feeling your heart, feeling joy, getting into creativity, right? The more you live in that space, the more you're going to build up your own boundary, and you're going to attract in people who are going to treat you better, situations that are better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's big with Kabbalah. It's your movie. Who do you want in it? And do you want your movie to go this way, or are you going to kick out that person and have it go that way?
Yeah, totally.
I think this has been a really interesting discussion.
Yeah. Let's see. You really are a living example, Edna says of you. So true.
So everything is a learning, is for learning, Mala. No matter what it is, there's something to learn. But you don't have to keep learning it. Once you've learned it, get it over with. Move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes when you learn something, the universe will then like give you another situation, and they'll be like, did you learn it?
Yeah.
Let's see. Can you act differently in this situation? I'm not talking about Kim's trauma, talking about like a conflict with a person or something.
Yeah.
Like, did you learn how to communicate well? Let's see. Here's some conflict to see if you actually did. Yeah. Our old selves will definitely pop up sometimes. You just got to figure out like how to self-regulate back.
Now, Deborah, I'm sorry about your son.
Oh.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is in a beautiful place now, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, so cute. Deborah, you should, if you haven't watched it already, you should watch our live video on connecting with your loved ones in spirit, like Signs from the Afterlife video.
And
that would be a good one.
Yeah, and Deborah, and everybody, I didn't just like miraculously, get healed. a lot of my healing took place because of what my daughter Talia said from the spirit world. And Laura has been and always will be there. And she is, I mean, I can communicate, but when it's about myself, I can't trust it. So Laura talks to Talia, and I think anybody who needs to hear from their loved ones, Laura's amazing. And so definitely that she kicked me like 3/4 of the way to my healing because of Laura talking to Talia. I mean, seriously.
And Kim has written some books. You can see that up on the corner there. The Universe Speaks is one of her books of wisdom that Talia has spoken.
Yeah.
Through another one of Kim's friends.
Yeah, that is all Talia talking about, the spirit world, transitioning, how to live your life here, just talking about whatever, daily life. I knew someone who didn't believe in spirit communications. And then when she read that book, like halfway through reading Talia's words, all of a sudden she heard from her dead uncle. So it can be powerful, but you have to want to read sometimes just about, hey, what are you doing today? Versus not every sentence is, a spiritual lesson, but the lesson is spirits don't have to talk about something so important. They can just talk about what you did today. I mean, that's the biggest lesson of all. They're here with us.
Yeah, they'll often say things like, oh yeah, I went to the hairdresser, and like the person would have like just gone to the hairdresser or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're always saying like they're there with you at those little times, that you don't even know that they're there. They're there, the monumental times too, but also just the little things.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
The person that's, I'm no therapist, but that's a really good question. And I think we've talked about that in another YouTube, but you put protection. So you ground yourself and you just go through what you need a certain process to protect yourself. And then you can talk to your loved ones. You do need to kind of be aware. I mean, it's not.
So the question is, how does one get past the fear of connecting and communicating with the beyond? I feel spirit, but I'm cautious too. We have spoken about this in the other lives because there are little pesky things that could be there, but really your clear intention of what you want. Like if you have a clear intention that you only want like a certain person, like when I'm doing a reading, I know exactly who I'm speaking to, and that's all I'm going to, right? Is that person, and being up in that higher frequency. The higher frequency you reside, which is in your heart, there's like this thing called brain heart coherence, where if you are feeling the power of your heart and the frequency of your heart, it goes up into your brain and out towards spirit. Well, if you're in that brain heart coherence, nothing lower can live. Fear can't live there. So if you are really conscious of that, then that will release anything of lower intention. If you feel something that you feel is negative around you, do not pay attention to it. You just literally go into your heart and think about something happy, and they just cannot live in that space. So you don't need to sage. You can sage. I love to sage, but you don't need to sage. You don't need to call in other psychics to clear your home. You just literally raise your vibration higher, think of joy, and that's it. They go away.
Yeah, exactly. Don't even acknowledge it.
Don't even acknowledge it. What you acknowledge in grows bigger. So
yeah, exactly. So I think Edna, was it Edna? Yeah, Edna, your friend that lost her 19-year-old son, and they don't believe, maybe they should start with.
Here, read the comment so that everyone knows what you're talking about.
A friend lost her 19-year-old son in a horrific accident with a semi. I'm a medium, and I know he is with the family, but don't sense they believe at all in anything, and I can't get to the rest of it. But basically, if they don't believe, you can't force it on them, but maybe give them a book, some fun books. Like there's this book that's called Do Spirits Watch Me in the Shower? That book is so funny because I thought that in the
Great
beginning.
question.
I thought, okay, so
Yeah,
Talia's always
right.
with me. What does that really
Totally.
mean? So, there's a book, I forgot what it's called, but it's written by, the last name's a Guggenheim. So that's a good book to read. And it's examples of these people having spiritual contact and discussions. And sometimes it opens the door to someone who doesn't believe to go, maybe I should think about feeling for this feeling from my loved one, or maybe I'll read more and learn more about it, how to do it. Maybe they'll say, no way, I don't believe, I'm not reading the book. But like my friend who didn't believe, she read halfway through Talia's book, and then all of a sudden she heard from her uncle. So sometimes that happens. So maybe just give them a book or two.
Yeah. It's hard when you're a psychic medium about like whether or not you can reach out. Like people who are open, like they want to hear, but like people who aren't open. I had this one time, I had a son of a friend of mine passed away. And my friend's son passed away.
Hmm.
And that kid woke me up in the middle of the night and was like talking to me and telling me all this stuff. And it's really rare that a spirit can actually wake me up. So I thought, like something greater wanted this message to get through. So I wrote it all down and I gave it to my friend to give it to the people. And the people thought I was like trying to get business from them. Like I was
Yeah.
trying to and it was like so missing the point. It was so sad because I didn't care. Like at one point he said, like, the reason why I thought that was because he was like, oh, thank you, but they weren't really open. And then I was like, well, if you want to know more, we could do a session. But that's because that's how I work. Like I don't typically talk to people I don't know, so
Mm-hmm.
he thought I was like trying to get business from him. I was like, if you knew me, I could barely answer all my emails. So, I'm not trying to solicit business, but it was a really awkward situation is what I'm trying to say. So it's really awkward. So, and I tried to be like to them, like at a dinner party, I was like, like trying to give this, they're just gonna, I think the best way to, as from a psychic's perspective, is to just put it out there and be like, have the intention for them that they will be shown opportunities or they will be shown when they're ready of guidance from their loved ones. Just really and that's what I did for these people in the end. I just put it out that I pray for them that they will notice something that they can't deny is their son, because their poor son was really trying hard. So, hopefully they'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're tough when they're just not open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I like these things because I've heard these stories a lot and I've done it sometimes too. I don't know how it was portrayed, but I've heard people like say like, oh, like I just received a book in the mail and it didn't say who it was from, and that book opened me up to like meditation or healing or spirit world. So every now and then I'll like send a book to someone who like, but I won't, through Amazon, you don't say like who it's from, and so I don't know how it's been received on that end, but that's something you could do, is send one of those books that Kim suggested, and maybe Kim's book, and just do it confidentially or anonymously and see what happens.
That's totally interesting, because my other book, which tells the story of what happened, Talia and her dad in the plane in Panama and the search and all this, in that book also is Talia's first spiritual contact to me, and how it completely changed me because I did not believe. So sometimes a story like that, which isn't spirit in your face, it's just, wait, that's interesting.
Did that happen to me?
Yeah. So, and that book is called Hummingbirds Don't Fly in the Rain. And maybe that's a good one to send to your friends, because it's a tragic situation, which is similar to I mean, the plane versus the semi. I mean, it's all tragic, but
Yeah.
that might let them know that, you know, it happens to other people, and this is how this person handled it, and this is what happened. So, oh, maybe it's going to happen to me too. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, we're coming up to time, and we have to keep on time today because we have things to do after. But we thank you all for watching and joining us today. It's like so fun. Please write comments about things that you want to talk about or things you want to discuss. So it gives Kim and I ideas, whether you do it now or you do it later. If you think about them, we do check the comments in our videos. So even later on, days to come or whatever, weeks to come. So feel free to just write them later on too. But we so enjoy you joining us today.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to you guys and hear what you have to say, and to read what you say, and to have a discussion about all sorts of things. Now, I want to add, Edna, if you need some more ideas, you can email me at kim@kimberlyklein.com. And that's also on the contact button on my website, kimberlyklein.com. And I can help direct you to other books or things like that.
Great. Yeah. And also check out my website, which is thepetpsychic.com, we should say.
Yeah. And also, Laura's books will teach you how to, it's to teach you how to communicate with spirits, your animals, dead people. That's a good book. Maybe that's for a secondary book to give to your friend.
Yeah, Voices of the Animals, that one would be. I was reading the reviews on that today because somebody posted on about my book on Instagram, and I shared it, and then I was looking at some of the reviews and I shared them. And some of them were saying too, like, oh, I was a skeptic, and then I realized I was doing it. Like I read your book and I realized I do this already, and so I'm not a skeptic anymore. I realize it's kind of Voices of the Animals is a good book to read to kind of connect you and dip your toes in the water to the pet psychic work too.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So fun.
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Okay, you guys. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. Be well.
See you next time.
Yep. Oops.
Time, I count